Sustainability is really impacting the real estate industry. Our clients have been really starting to think about how they mitigate and kind of minimize those impacts. We ourselves have done that by putting a stake in the ground. Our commitment is net zero by 2040. That gives us a degree of credibility. We're doing this ourselves. We see that you've made that commitment. How can we help you? This is not going to be an attractive opportunity for every financial services institution out there. That is where we are able to come in as a service provider, as where we're able to come in and help.
Hi, welcome to Opportunity Miami. My name is Roderick Miller. I'm President and CEO of the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, and I'm so excited to have here today my friend of over a decade, Angela Cal, the VP of Client Sustainability Partnerships at JLL. Welcome to Opportunity Miami, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Rod.
We're glad to have you. So, for those of us in this industry, everyone knows JLL, but for those that may not be familiar, can you tell us a little bit about JLL and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. JLL is a global diversified real estate services company, one of the 3 largest in the world, with over 110,000 professionals. We really focus on the entire value chain of real estate. We have been very focused over the last few years on sustainability because of the way that it impacts our clients' businesses.
So Miami, is often the spotlight as a booming real estate market and emerging financial hub. What factors do you think have contributed to Miami's growth and resilience, especially as you compare it to other major U.S. cities?
I think there have really been a number of factors. What's been interesting has been to see specific drivers in specific industries, say financial services. So at this point, Miami is absolutely a destination as kind of a secondary hub for major global financial services companies. And it's almost a copycat effect, right? When you see a massive global firm like a Citadel moving their headquarters and putting a stake in the ground, to acquire a very visible, lucrative parcel of real estate, and really putting that stake in the ground around creating an iconic new headquarters. And then you just see, others start to follow suit. So, the JP Morgans, the Santander. So that kind of migration of financial services companies has been very interesting to watch, not just U.S. ones, but also from other countries as well in establishing themselves. I think the other thing, the city has done a really interesting job of positioning around technology and as a technology hub. And so as a result of that, you not only get the big tech players establishing a presence, you also get, kind of the tech entrepreneurs. For us, that's really been interesting to watch, particularly with a focus on climate tech.
What's interesting is, so I often talk about Miami being in this transformation, in this evolution, in this process where, if we looked at the Miami of 40 years ago when Beacon Council was founded, it has almost nothing to do with Miami today in terms of how the economy looks, right? Our economy has all these curves and edges. We've got the same industries, even when we look at the same industries, even those industries are transforming. And one of the things is to see all of this growth, but still recognize that in many respects, we're kind of ground zero for climate change, right? And so we've got all of this investment coming in, but we've got these risks. And from a JLL perspective, you're talking about a 200-year-old company. How do you think about the question of sustainability? And then how do you think about it in the context of Miami?
Well, sustainability is really impacting the real estate industry. And there's a metric that's very often quoted, which is 40% of greenhouse gas emissions can be attributable to the built environment or to the building sector. And when you look at in cities, that number goes even higher, even up to kind of 60 or 70%. And that is everything. That's the kind of the full value chain of real estate, from the construction of buildings to the operation of buildings, all the way through to the disposal or the demolition of buildings. And so from that standpoint, our clients have been really starting to think about how they mitigate and kind of minimize those impacts. We ourselves have done that by putting a stake in the ground. We were the first major real estate company that signed up for the Science Based Targets initiative, which is a very specific, visible public commitment to reduce carbon emissions. Our commitment is net zero by 2040, measured against the baseline of the year 2018. we did that to say, we see our role in this and we're going to take responsibility ourselves. We have a team that works globally that is focused on our JLL impact and our JLL footprint. That gives us a degree of credibility to say to our clients, whether it's an investor, client, or a large corporate occupier, we're doing this ourselves. We see that you've made that commitment. How can we help you? 80% of our clients have made commitments to decarbonize or to hit some type of climate action target, but only about 20% of them actually have a plan. That is where we are able to come in as a service provider across, again, the kind of entire value chain of activity, as where we're able to come in and help.
I mean, historically, property managers, developers, et cetera, have said, you can't really get a return on investment. You can't really make it generate economic value, but your research has shown that you have been able to, do low carbon buildings and generate economic value. How does that work?
I'm so glad you asked that question, the how does it pencil question. So we actually think about the answer to that question kind of on two scales, right? So at the macro scale, our market research, we've done market research looking at the kind of the supply and demand for low carbon space. And so going back to the point about particularly corporate players kind of setting climate targets, if you have companies that have made public commitments, as ours has, to say we're going to hit a certain threshold by a certain baseline or benchmark year, 2030, 2035, or 2040, whatever that is, right? Then they've made that commitment and they have to march toward that. Our research team has done analysis of, I think we've looked at like 20 cities where we've been benchmarking, and we're seeing that basically if you just quantify the demand for corporate clients that need office space, then the demand for that space is going to outstrip the supply of that space, right? There's going to be this inflection point. From a macro perspective, just basic supply-demand economics, there's going to be a premium for low-carbon space because there's going to be an undersupply of it. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be true in every city around the world, but certainly in global capitals, in cities where you have high agglomeration of corporate headquarters. We believe, and we stand by, that research. We believe that very much will be the case, and we believe that over time that will also be the case in Miami.
I mean, one of the things that you've been doing so well is you've been in this market for a while now, working with business leaders, working with civic leaders, working with political leaders. Can you talk a little bit just about the way that you're trying to work with the community and business to kind of bring these efficiencies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd say that our kind of way in was through the Tech Hub initiative. So towards the end of 2023, when the county's economic development and resilience leadership came together and kind of put out the call to, for people to join forces and create proposals to go after Department of Commerce funding under the Tech Hub designation, we were kind of part of that effort. And really what we saw was a really powerful alignment of government, private sector, this institutional sector, also philanthropy.
So getting the numbers to pencil, that's a significant challenge. Can you tell us a little bit more about going deeper into how to make the numbers work?
Sure. I mean, so we've talked about it a little bit at the macro scale from a supply-demand perspective, but really what it gets into is the kind of the microeconomics at a building level. If you just kind of think about a building from a pure kind of profit and loss standpoint, right? A building as synonymous with a business, where you have top line, you have income, say that's rent, and then you have costs, right? The operating costs of running that building, and your income minus your costs is your profit. You move the needle on numbers, right? You move the needle on the bottom line by, kind of impacting those two things. So let's start with the cost perspective. So from an energy efficiency standpoint, if you have an asset and you can identify ways to operate that asset more efficiently, even something as mundane as swapping out light fixtures for LEDs or upgrading HVAC, swapping out solar panels, right? Yeah. Then you are moving the needle on the cost, you're reducing the costs. When you do that, in some cases, we find that building owners only look at that cost and they say, well, that's going to cost me X and it's going to take me this much time to kind of pay that back. It's really more appropriate to think about it on a total life cycle cost perspective, where those cost savings are really added back to the profit and loss of your building as positive cash flow. And then you look at that and forecast it over a much longer period of time, and the net present value of those savings gives you a significantly different number. Yeah. When you look at from a premium perspective, right, from the revenue side, in some cases we're seeing asset owners who are really starting to position around sustainability, and that you see that obviously with the badging of certifications like LEED and WELL and FitWell and zero carbon certification, and so the ability to kind of price a premium into those things is what gives you that top line. We call it kind of the green premium.
Now, are financing models catching up with the kind of the analysis side of it to be able to find ways to finance these investments?
Yes and no. I think that it's really about aligning the sources of capital with the investment. This is not going to be an attractive opportunity for every financial services institution out there. But there are a number, and a growing number, that are dedicated, that have raised funding and have allocated capital with a specific focus on infrastructure modernization and decarbonization and the built environment. So in the case of Miami, we have been working with a London-based firm called Sustainable Development Capital Limited, SDCL. SDCL came to the table. We were interested in what they had done in London, which was to create a dedicated fund to, in partnership with the City of London, to identify assets that were ripe for investment and to actually deploy capital to make those upgrades. We brought SDCL to the table with the county to talk about how viable that would be here in Miami. They have a $700 million fund, Green Energy Solutions Fund, and that capital is dedicated to these types of efforts. And so the investors into their fund, pension funds, other institutional investors, that capital is more patient. They're specifically putting money in because they're there to move the needle on making system-wide change in the built environment. And working with SDCL, we're hoping to basically create a three-legged stool.
You've talked about eds and meds, that old eds and meds, but you've also talked a lot about government, and you talked about Miami's Edge 305 program. Can you talk a little bit about kind of why that's important and how that fits into the broader picture?
Sure. So Edge 305 is the initiative that we've been incubating with the county's resilience and economic development teams for about 9 months now. EDGE stands for the Efficient Decentralized Generation of Energy, really thinking about the decentralization of generation of energy and ensuring that these assets are resilient through different types of implementation of clean energy, whether it's solar or other types of battery backup and other types of facilities. And the goal really is to align these large players, partner with the county, partner with other organizations like Beacon, like Resilient 305 Collaborative, to kind of bring everyone into a kind of a shared vision of what that future could look like, but to do it in a way that's practical, because we can align it with a capital partner and we can bring the technical and the planning expertise of JLL to actually realize a long-term plan.
5 years from now, we're successful. What does that look like?
I mean, I think what's really inspiring about this market, again, is this alignment of the institutional, the philanthropic, private and public sector. I think that kind of pointing that force, like that force of collaboration at this kind of challenge to decarbonize the built environment, to make our real estate more sustainable, pointing it in a way that is really strategic, I think can really pay dividends. If we can really deploy capital to enable the largest asset owners to do the work that's needed to be done to upgrade their infrastructure, then we can also level up the standard for new buildings, and that really delivers on economic development outcomes. You're really creating an engine of activity in the building sector. You're creating the opportunity to integrate and leverage new technologies, and it really becomes a win-win-win.